Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 105 of the Ron and Brian podcast. I'm Ron, joined by the man with some of the most valuable plasma in the United States, Brian. Brian, how goes it this week, sir?
I would love to complain, but I cannot. I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right, Ron. I'm broadcasting live from New York City, the epicenter of the United States coronavirus pandemic, and these are some tough streets that I'm walking. And sometimes you gotta look over your shoulder. You gotta protect your neck. You gotta watch your back. And ultimately, you've got to riggedy wreck yourself before you check yourself.
All right.
Also, and I'm going to give you a heads up because I think it's only fair, and I didn't want to say this until after we started recording, but I've been drinking since 5:45.
Fantastic. Those are always the best episodes. Can we brag a little bit about your blood, Brian?
Oh, so
please.
It's so full. It's so full. Ron, I will let you lead the way while we discuss the importance of what is flowing through my body right now.
So my esteemed colleague on the other side of the screen here, Brian, went and took an antibody test out there in New York City. And guess who tested positive as having had the COVID-19? That's right, our man, Brian. He now has those antibodies just tearing back and forth through that bloodstream.
Ron, do you want to see some antibodies? Because
I don't think it works that way. Put the scissors down. We had, I'm not sure if we had talked about it on the podcast, but we certainly had talked about it in private when you were sick a few weeks back. You didn't know if it was the flu. You didn't know if it was the coronavirus. Basically, it was at a point where you couldn't get tested anyway. So you just managed to stay at home. But for at least a 3-episode period, you continued to do podcasts while battling the coronavirus, which I believe, in my humble opinion, makes you the toughest man in podcasting today. So congratulations, my friend. You kick ass. You kept it going. And now you might save the universe with what you have going on inside your body.
Yeah, absolutely. Living in New York, you get exposed to a lot of different people. And I think only now, looking back as this virus has wreaked havoc across this globe, I think we realize here in New York how many different people you actually interact with. Back in March, I started to not feel well, exhibited a lot of the symptoms that they have attributed the virus with. Lethargy. I was going to try and come up with as many mispronounced words, and I just ran out right after lethargy. I was lethargic, lack of an appetite, vomiting, headaches, fevers, chills. I did not want to do the Patreon episode. I mean, that's how you knew I was sick.
Yeah. And when you can't provide the paid content, that'll tell you how bad it is.
Yes. I believe, in total, based on my records, I lost about 17 pounds in a 3-week period of time.
You look stunning, by the way.
All the while, I was still working from home, taking care of my father.
Yep.
And putting a half-ass effort in for a podcast.
I mean, that's the other thing. Quarantined with your 85-year-old father?
87.
87. Managed not to give him the coronavirus, took care of yourself and him.
Yes.
And knocked it out in 3 episodes.
Absolutely. You know what I remember? And this is weird because I don't know why it just popped in my head. But I remember when I was not feeling well, when I was going through it, I remember doing the podcast with you. And I literally had a shelf life of about an hour. And I remember towards the latter part of the podcast, literally like hunched over and just kind of like rocking back and forth because I needed to lay down so badly. But I stuck out the podcast because I've got priorities.
You love the people that much. Just really a shocking turn of events. For months now, no one has had anything to do with your bodily fluids. And
No.
now they are in high demand. So props to you, my friend.
Do you think I can actually donate?
I mean, I'm actually a
I know
little
Tom Hanks
surprised.
did.
I'm surprised I haven't reached out to you since you've tested positive. I'm surprised I haven't called you. Where did you go for your testing, if you don't mind me asking?
Urgent care. I went to
Oh,
City
is that it?
MD.
All right. Maybe that's
Walked
why.
in. My gut tells me is that there are so many people in New York testing positive for antibodies.
That's
You
true.
know, they're saying 20,000 people died in New York State. So you got to figure at least half of them were in New York City. So if you're talking about 10,000+ deaths in New York City over a short period of time, I imagine there's a lot of people also walking around with antibodies. What I'm looking to do is to set up a national tour where, because if you think about it, my antibodies are probably not worth very much here in New York City.
No.
But say I take a plane and I fly out to Iowa or Michigan, and I start walking around one of those liberate our state capital. If I walk around and I say to people, "Hey, buddy, look, I've got the antibodies. How much do you want to pay me? Your wife's looking pretty cute in that car over there while she's dipping skull and wearing her Confederate flag bikini." I think I could actually capitalize on this pretty well.
You should probably go to like Georgia or Texas because their numbers are starting to jump up again. But yeah, you've got a burdening business just flowing through your veins right now. I think to celebrate,
if you are a listener, if you're a listener and you would like some of my plasma so that you can inject it into your body so that you become free of any fears of the coronavirus, reach out to me at ronandbrianpodcast@gmail.com and send me a topless photo.
All right. So like I said, let's celebrate your antibodies with a nice drink.
Drink of the week. Drink of the week. Pleasure.
Drink of the week. Drink of the week. Drink of the
That one
week,
I might redo.
drink of the week.
It's not my favorite. It's okay.
It's not.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I threw it together in like 5-10 minutes. Let's be 100% honest here. Regardless, no excuses this week. We just didn't get around to doing a drink of the week poll. We're busy guys doing different things in our lives. Brian, what have you been drinking? What did you start drinking at 5:45? Have you changed your drink, or has it been consistent these last few hours leading up to the podcast?
Consistent across the board. I made myself a Jack Daniels at 5:45 when I had finished working for the day. I had another one probably 6:30-ish.
Okay, so you're pacing yourself.
Pacing myself because I want it to be coherent here. Now it's going to, we're hitting the abyss. And made my third one right before this podcast. But what I like to do here is, as you can see, I've got a pint glass here. I like to go ice cubes up to about here.
Mm-hmm.
Then I go Jack Daniels to here, Coca-Cola up to there.
All right. So that kind of waters itself down after a while. So it's not
Exactly.
You're a smart man. I went, not surprisingly, beer again this week. I've got all these crowlers burning a hole in my fridge. Not really. But again, these are our good friends at Broken Goblet Brewing in Bensalem, PA. This is their Mose Eisley IPA, their Star Wars Mandalorian themed This Is the Way beer. And this is a special one they did. This is an orange creamsicle with lactose. Gotta love the lactose. Clocking in at a solid 8.1%. Not gonna lie, it's one I've drank before. Started drinking even before the podcast. Delish.
Why do you think it's significant that we both started drinking before the podcast this week? Because normally we're both sober when we start.
Yeah, I don't know what it was today. I will say this, in the first 2 weeks after I got laid off, I drank every single day. And then I kind of tapered off and just kind of, it was kind of a every once in a while thing. But now I feel like I'm ready to commit to drinking daily today. Today was one of those days. And tomorrow we'll do a little happy hour. So tomorrow will be one of those days also.
This is not a lifestyle choice. This is who we are.
Right.
I definitely feel like I'm getting,
I
feel like I'm getting my second wind.
Well, excellent.
No, not at all. There's no judging.
We've got a full podcast to do here, and let's talk a little racism.
This
Week
in
Racism.
Racism. Well, we had talked in the previous weeks. We have a tough time finding racism with everybody being self-quarantined, but there still manages to be some jackasses out there. Going down to Pender County, North Carolina, a group of white people armed with weapons tried to force themselves into the home of a black family last Sunday night and refused to leave. The group was allegedly led by Deputy Jordan Kidda, who was armed and in uniform despite being off duty and out of his jurisdiction as he worked for the New Hanover Sheriff's Office. The group was looking for someone in conjunction with the disappearance of a young girl and did not believe the homeowner when she told them that the person they were looking for didn't live there. The group eventually realized they were in the wrong and started to leave, but not before the Pender County Sheriff's Office arrived. Not surprisingly, no one from the group was detained or questioned, and all were allowed to leave. In fact, nothing happened until a week later after the family's lawyer wrote to the district attorney's office asking them to investigate. Kidda has been charged with forcible trespass, breaking and entering, and willful failure to discharge duties, and he's also been fired from his job in New Hanover. A second person, Robert Austin Wood, has been charged as well, but the rest of the group has not yet been identified. So apparently a group of white people in North Carolina can just pretty much break into someone's home and walk away afterwards. Not quite shocking.
Only if that person is a minority.
That's true. Very true. Going out to Indiana, Indiana State Representative Jim Lucas is defending himself against accusations of racism after he posted a photo on Facebook of black kids dancing with the words, quote, "We gonna get free money." In his defense, he claims that he doesn't see color and doesn't believe his post was racist. Isn't that what Stephen Colbert used to say on the Colbert Report? I don't see color.
Can't see color.
Just got to use that.
I missed that show. I missed that show.
It was great. He said, you know, I was, and this is why the right can't meme. He's like, I was in the meme generator, picture of black kids dancing came up, and I used it. Could have easily been white kids. And that language, it's just the language the kids these days use. So he's a jackass. And going out to the West Coast, Sacramento State Professor Tim Ford and his wife have apologized after a video circulated showing his wife using racial slurs against neighbors in their apartment complex. Crystal Ford is also seen flipping the bird at neighbor Michaela Cobb during the argument, which apparently started over the smell of bacon grease from Cobb's apartment. Crystal also appeared to be impaired in the video, which led the people on Reddit's public freakout subreddit to speculate what drugs and or alcohol she was on. But unfortunately, not great audio from that one. We know we've got a great pair of defending champions in Freeman and Hume. So we are really waiting for a top-notch racist to come out to contend with them. Haven't seen it yet. I mean, Brian, unless you think I'm a fool to hold out for good racism.
Listen, we are sitting on a Triple Crown winner. Those two high school kids with that TikTok snap, whatever it was, on how to make an African American are such quality racists. We're talking, they won the Kentucky Derby. They flat out nailed the Preakness. They crushed the Belmont Stakes. For us to put forth competition, we've got to have somebody that's Breeders' Cup quality. And frankly, I'm not seeing it right now from the field.
All right. I trust your judgment more than my own, my friend. Anything else before we move on? Anything else about our racism? I'm not even sure what I
Nothing
just
I
said.
can think
I'm
of.
already tripping over my words here.
What am I leaving out?
You're not leaving anything out. I was just seeing if you had any comments about the 3 cases we had this week.
No, I think that I'm perplexed that somebody's complaining about the smell of bacon grease.
Yeah, that's the best smell in the world, personally.
I don't know. I've ever walked in a room and been like, it smells like bacon in here. Oh, hey, that's good. Somebody's calling me. Let me check out who this is. Hold on.
We won't edit that at all.
Why would we? That's all right. My dad let the phone die, so we're not even going. I couldn't even tell you who's calling. God damn. Sorry. All right, I'm back.
All
This
right.
is what you get. There's no editing here. You're going to get exactly what my life is like.
Editing
Yay.
takes way too long. All right. Well, in the meantime, then, let's see what's bothering us this week.
Ron and Brian's Beef of the Week.
Brian, what's bothering you this week?
Telemarketers.
Really? Like the ones that
Yes.
just called you?
The ones that are fucking calling me right now.
Why don't you just
No,
pull the
thank
phone
you.
completely out of your wall? I'm just going to let
God.
to Brian's phone in the back.
Fuck. Okay, I'm going to power through this. Yes, telemarketers. There literally is nobody that calls me on this home phone. Nobody has this home phone. Literally, no. Yet every day I get 4 calls from an 858 number, and it's a one of these robocalls. There's never a message. Every now and then I get a 347 number, which is
That's a New York City number.
message. That is a 347 New York City number, but that always is a Asian recording. I can't tell if it's Chinese, Japanese, Korean, could be Taiwanese.
Now, wait a
maybe
minute.
from
Hold on.
Korean.
Is it 347-480-1305?
Could be. I don't
Because
know.
I've been
Why?
getting a 347 call as well.
No, that's me. That's me calling you.
And I've been ignoring you. I apologize.
Fuck. It's like, and you know what I'm also mad at? Another beef. Myself. How do we've how many times does this happen to us while we're recording?
Well, I mean, we have recorded our 2-year anniversary last week. It's happened a few times. So
It's happened enough times. Why don't I remember to
turn the phone off?
Why don't I remember to turn the fucking phone off? God, I hate myself sometimes.
Don't beat yourself up, Brian. It's not
Okay.
not necessary.
Ron,
Yes.
what's bothering you?
So, and I believe I've complained about this company previously. My previous
iHerb?
job. Yes.
iHerb?
No, iHerb. I got my garlic powder, so that's all good there. But my previous job, they used a third-party HR/payroll company called Co-Advantages Resources, and they just suck horribly. They screwed up some things previously. They screwed up some people's benefits. They had screwed up my Philadelphia city wage tax. Well, now, come to find out, they also screwed up not taking out my township tax. Apparently, I have to pay 1% to the township that I live in because our property taxes aren't high enough to begin with. So I got a bill from the tax assessor for $1,300 this past week.
Which means that you made what, $48 back in January through March?
I mean, it was it's ridiculous. Well, there was also, of course, there was interest and penalties attached to that since it hadn't been paid accordingly.
And I will say this to you.
Yes.
First off, a legitimate complaint. That would drive me nuts, especially when you're on the government's teat, as they like to say politely. But this is one of the problems I have with outsourcing, which is it's a way to save money, but you lose on customer service because
And you don't, I mean, and it's not even a case of where the company loses on customer service. You know, the company gets service. It's the individuals that work for the company
Correct.
that get fucked over.
But now imagine if you showed up to work every day and the person that you said good morning to, had coffee with, would sit there and talk about which donut you were going to have by the coffee machine. If that person has the responsibility of making sure that you get paid accurately.
Yes.
That's the problem, is the fact that by outsourcing payroll, you're dealing with an organization, a company, who knows what county, what state, what country they're located between the people processing payroll and the employee, that these types of errors happen more often than not. I apologize.
That's it happens. What are you going to do? But I will say on a plus note, I just checked my bank account. I did that. You reminded me. I wanted to make sure I got my unemployment, and I did get that today. So I will.
You got unemployment?
I will continue to be able to survive.
Let's go on GoFundMe right now live and find some place for you to donate $10 to.
$10. Wow, that's it's a little tight right now, my friend. I have to go buy more crowlers. Yeah, $5 maybe.
Do you know how much it bothers? It genuinely bothers me that you have access to such craft beer goodness, so close to Broken Goblet. But also, I genuinely get a sense that you have a better selection in Pennsylvania than I do here in New York City.
I think so. And also, Neshaminy Creek now delivers to my area. There's a bunch of curbside deliveries. And today in Pennsylvania, the state Senate passed a law that will go to the governor to be signed that will allow restaurants to sell to-go cocktails anywhere from 4 ounces all the way up to 64 ounces. So
yeah,
you will be able to get lit AF moving forward.
I don't know if it's been legal, but every bar in New York has been doing that. Every bar is selling to-go cups. It's fucking glorious. It's one thing. And I'm going to say this, like, New York has gone through such a shit show over these past couple of months. But if there is anything that I have seen that has made me realize that I am living exactly where I need to live, is the sense of resolve that I have seen from my fellow New Yorkers. Like, people just sitting there saying, I don't give a shit what's going on. I am going to just be okay, no matter what happens.
They don't say if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere for nothing. If you can make it in New York City, it's because you're resourceful. Yeah. It's because you don't let things get you down. It's because you don't let a pandemic stop you from selling watered down, high-priced alcoholic drinks. God bless New York City.
I know. It's a beautiful place. It's a beautiful place. We'll be back. I saw this week that the Broadway has announced that they are shut through Labor Day.
Through September 8th. Although, on the plus side, the
Broadway is shut down. Broadway is shut down. I mean, that's the plus, right?
No, on the plus side, the theatrical release of Hamilton will now take place on the Disney Plus streaming service on July 3rd.
Which reminds me of the time when you and the wife were in New York City and went to go see Hamilton, and I waited online with you guys.
You did. You stood outside the theater with us. I will say,
if I was smart, what I should have done was hung out outside, gone to a bar, and then at intermission met you guys outside and snuck in.
It was a packed house, so crowded, long lines for the bathrooms. I will say that. If you go to see Hamilton when New York City opens back up, don't drink a lot of liquids prior to it.
I saw an interesting tweet early this morning where somebody said that the fact that they moved Hamilton from a movie theatrical release to Apple TV online streaming says it speaks volumes about the forecast outlook for the movie theater industry.
Oh, no question. This was supposed to be one of the biggest releases of summer 2021, and now they're going to use it as a way to bump up the subscribers on Disney Plus.
Yeah, like this was going to make hundreds of millions of dollars. and it's the movie industry admitting we are not going to be around for a very long time, because they easily could have held this out for another year.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't have to come out, but
No.
listen, I may even subscribe to Disney Plus now to see Hamilton. That's
Oh, I am almost positive that I will do the Hulu, Disney, ESPN Plus bundle.
Is ESPN even charging for their bundle right now? Because what the hell are they showing on their streaming service? I mean, I
They are
know if you turn on the channel, it's all South Korean baseball right now.
Oh my God, I love South Korean baseball. Oh,
It's so freaking creepy with how they did the stands with just like long like
yes.
signs of like faces in the crowd.
You don't even, and you don't, and the beauty of it is you aren't even sure what the fuck's going on in the game. You don't know who the players are. You just see somebody throw the ball, somebody hits the ball, somebody catches it. It's glorious to have sports again. Question for you, speaking of live sports, did you by any chance happen to watch any of the UFC fights that happened this past weekend?
I did not. You had mentioned to me that there was going to be some live on ESPN, and I missed out. Missed out on the entire card, actually.
I watched all of the free fights because I am not wealthy enough that I want to drop $50 for 4 fights.
Now,
but
was it a case of where the fights just took place and there was no spectators?
No, there was nobody in the audience other than a crew of the UFC and the production company. You're literally they took an arena in Florida where sports has been deemed an essential service. All of the fighters and referees and everyone else had been tested for coronavirus. One of the fighters actually tested positive, and 2 of his people in his crew tested positive, so he was not allowed to fight. But all the other fights went on. It was odd because it took away from the what's the word I'm thinking of? It took away from like the experience.
Right.
You know, it was an event. But it actually was able to, in my opinion, it really was able to show some of the focus on the talent of the fights that were going on. There was no distractions. You know, the video, they weren't going to, oh, hey, look, here's Justin Timberlake in the crowd, and oh, look, here's A-Rod and Jay. Like, there was none of that. It was just fight. The announcers would talk about, you know, their analysis of it, and then the next fight. And it was just repeat. And then at 10 o'clock, I went to bed.
Well, and one of the best parts of the UFC fights is when like somebody gets just like a huge shot on somebody and the crowd just goes crazy. Like I would imagine that kind of loses something in the translation, just having a completely quiet arena.
But what was lost in terms of the overall experience was gained in terms of an appreciation for what was actually going on in the ring.
So you fell in love with the sport, not the spectacle.
No, I am not even. I am far from in love with it. I will say that I gambled and lost $100.
Well, that's better losing it gambling than at a strip club, I suppose.
I could have also spent that $100 on takeout drinks from a local bar.
Something to think about. You like mixing your own, though. I get that.
Ew, gotta get the right quantities.
Yeah. So anyway, of course, coronavirus continues to be the biggest news wherever you go. Now, more focus since they're pushing to open schools back up, get the kids going again, more focusing on some of the issues that some of these kids are dealing with coronavirus, specifically some of the kids that have passed away. I heard a little bit about this on CNN earlier, Brian. You were telling me about this something resembling a Kawasaki.
Yeah, it's called like, you know, child multi-inflammatory blah 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 blah. I don't remember the name of it, but obviously I'm not trying to downplay the seriousness of it. But it seems like as an adjunct to the coronavirus, there are children under 18, minors, that are developing a disease where they are experiencing inflamed areas of their body. Some kids are getting it on their skin, some types of internal organs and whatnot, but it is almost always a few weeks after the children are either diagnosed as positive for the coronavirus or are experiencing symptoms aligned with the coronavirus. This is clearly a worrying story, because one of the selling points of the coronavirus, and I regret the word selling point, like it was just like it was like a car dealership talking about how awesome the trunk
One of the
space.
upsides of this coronavirus.
You know, if you're looking for the Nissan Altima, you're going to love the Kawasaki disease. But
Listen,
what's worrisome?
what is it going to take me to get you into this virus today?
But one of the things is the fact that that has been a consistent theme is that children are relatively unharmed by this disease,
Or so we thought.
coronavirus, or that, you know, the death rate, the infection, the hospitalization rate is so small by comparison to other age groups. Now, here is a disease that is starting to happen that is specifically targeting children. And there have been multiple cases in New York State. And what I'm reading is that there have been cases internationally as well as other areas of the country.
What we seem to be finding as we get deeper into this is how much we still don't know about this virus and how much it still continues to affect our bodies in ways that you know, don't seem to be commonplace just yet. Like I think I shared a story with you earlier today. So that guy from Broadway who had his leg amputated due to blood clots from the coronavirus. Because when I first read it, I was like, why would you need an amputation? And then when you read about the blood clots, it makes sense. But, you know, this, again, here's another symptom of this disease that has, you know, come forward. You know, that's not a flu-like, you know, symptom. Everyone's like, oh, it's just like the flu. No, if you're getting blood clots, if you are getting limbs amputated, like that's just a whole other ballgame.
I did hear one other story about that guy, and we
Okay.
should have his name because, I mean, he's gone through hell. But from what I heard, his wife was not a very good dancer. And he was on Broadway doing a lot of singing and dancing. And from what I read, the wife had been humiliated one time too many. And while he was in a corona-induced coma, his wife said to the doctor, sweep the leg.
Sweep the leg.
The doctor heard it incorrectly, and what the doctor heard was cut the leg. So it's a rumor. I cannot say under any circumstances whether it's true or not. Wildly insensitive, but nowadays you don't know what to believe anymore.
Yeah. And that was Broadway star Nick Cordero, since you shamed me for not having his name. And he was in a coma when they took his leg off. Like, how fucked up is that, where, you know, you're in the hospital, you're in a coma, you wake up and your leg's gone? Like, I don't even know how I would handle that.
I would sink. I would be furious for a period of time, and then I would sink into a depression.
All right. Well, at least you have a game plan.
But with that said, his wife is pretty easy on the eyes, so maybe
he's got that.
Maybe it's, you know, not all hope is lost.
All right. Let's go over to the east for a bit. One of my favorite stories this week is Singapore now has robot dogs patrolling its parks, telling people to socially distance. I think we've all seen the videos online of those robot dogs from Boston Dynamics that resemble the Black Mirror episode where the dogs kill basically all of humanity. Well, now they are walking the green spaces in Singapore, and they have recorded messages that tell people to stay at least 1 meter apart. That would freak me out as well. Apparently, they can also track how many people are in a park or in a public area at any time, although authorities say the cameras won't be able to track individuals or record personal data. No.
Yeah, okay.
Apparently, also, they're testing to see if these robot dogs can be used at temporary hospitals to deliver medicines to patients. So maybe they're not that bad, but it is a little creepy watching video of these robot dogs run through the parks. Is
Yeah,
this the end of humanity, Brian?
Cujo comes up to me when I'm in the hospital and says, "Hey, here's your pills." Yeah, no, thank you.
Hello, Brian. Take this pill right now.
No way. Actually, I mean, I'm getting kind of freaked out by the cell phone tracking software, and I know conspiracy theory popping off and all that kind of shit. But I have seen a lot of articles about how Google, Facebook, all these technology companies are now creating apps and using the data from your cell phone to track social distancing,
Mhm.
but also what they want to do is use your cell phone so that if you come into if you're in contact with somebody that is later determined to have coronavirus, they will be able to use the cell phone data of that person to track backwards to see who they interacted with over the previous 2 weeks. That makes me not comfortable.
Well, and that happened. I mean, we had an article in our local news here where they were talking about how our county was doing better at social distancing, and they showed a percentage of change of people in parks, in grocery stores, versus being at home, and all of those percentages were gained by accessing people's cell phone location data.
Yes.
And
Yes.
everybody was like, "Oh yeah, this is great. We're sheltering in place." And I'm like, "How the fuck is this data like everyday use?" But that was used recently in South Korea, where they're now getting a second wave of the coronavirus. Apparently, there was one
Yes.
guy who went to a nightclub and based
Yes.
on his cell phone data versus the cell phone data of people at the nightclub, have found that he has infected, I think, upwards of 119
Yes.
people.
He went to multiple nightclubs. He started off at one and then went to others while he was coughing and telling people that he hoped he didn't have coronavirus. Fucking A.
I was watching CNN right before this, and they showed that they showed another diagram of someone in South Korea who was working in an office, infected 94 coworkers. There was another a restaurant diagram that's gone around a lot where someone infected like 29 people. But I think the most disturbing thing they did was they had a computer simulation in an aircraft and showed how somebody sitting in the middle row in the middle of the plane, if they were to sneeze, how the coronavirus particles would literally go up and then just swoop through the entire cabin of the plane.
Yeah,
Like,
that's fucked up.
and you see people flying again, and you see these packed planes and people wearing masks. I don't know if that's going to make any difference.
I think, I don't want to say this as somebody who is, who's on the other side. I understand the enviable place that that I'm currently at. But I think that the only, way that we as a society can move forward is to expose ourselves to this and to do it in small enough doses as a society that we don't overwhelm our ability to care for the sick.
So you're taking the Bill Maher approach, where he said this past week that people need to rely on their immune systems, and if you're immune compromised, then yes, you need to be more careful. But the rest of us should just go about and get that herd immunity going.
What I'm proposing is something that's not feasible. Where what we do is we say to a group of 100,000 people, we're going to expose you to coronavirus, and we're going to wait for you to go through the infection, the illness, whatnot. Some of you may die. Some of you will get very sick. Some of you will be perfectly healthy. But at the end of it, okay, now we are going to move you over to the general society, general population, and we're going to take 100,000 of the next group of Americans that have been staying at home, hiding away from the germs, and we're going to expose them. And then we just keep doing this in tranches throughout society until we get to a point, hopefully, that we either have a vaccine or we've got enough of a herd immunity that we can, as a society, continue to adapt.
I think the only problem with that is I don't think that we're 100% certain that having the antibodies protects you from the coronavirus. And if it does, we don't know what the, if you will, what the shelf life is of your antibodies. I know you're looking at me in shock now. You may not be as safe as you think you are.
I actually don't think I'm safe at all. All I know, as much as we were joking and celebrating me at the beginning of this podcast, the only thing that I feel I have as a result of testing positive for the antibodies is an acknowledgement that what I went through back in March was the coronavirus.
Which you said you would have felt like kind of a schmuck if you, thought you had a coronavirus and then just ended up with the flu. So at least that was validated for you.
Listen, I know a lot about my body. I know where it hurts. I know where it feels good. I know where it tickles. I know where it makes me feel kind of butterflies in my tummy. And what I felt was something I had not felt. I had not had that level of illness in years.
No, I had not seen you like that. I mean, it
was rough.
It took the starch out of you, no question.
Yeah. But I'm back. I'm better than ever. Ready to. I would actually. You know what? It was interesting. I did look to see whether I could donate blood for the plasma stuff, and what it said was, and I'm gonna have to call. But what it said was that I have to be able to show a positive test result for coronavirus, and then I have to show a positive. I have to show a letter from my physician saying that I'm not positive for coronavirus anymore.
Gotcha. So not only do you need to have the antibodies, you need to have gotten over it.
Correct.
Okay.
So I may have to go to the black market. And when I say black market, I'm talking about the underworld.
Yes. Nothing like the dark web.
No. Well, I like to go to the dark web.
So I see that there are arresting people in New York City for coronavirus incidents, Brian, and it seems like they may be targeting certain groups of people out there.
No. We are in a post-racial world. Our police force goes after people that commit crimes. They just like Stephen Colbert, they see no color. No economic class. Everybody is the same. It's what I love about New York City. It's the fairest place on the world.
Well, you would think that. However, out of the 125 quote COVID-19 related arrests made, 83 suspects were Black and 30 were Hispanic. That means 90% of the arrests were people of color. Only 9 who were arrested were white and 3 were Asian or Pacific Islander.
Optics. The optics there, Ron.
Apparently, the only patrol bureau where that trend didn't occur was on Staten Island, where there has only been 1 arrest connected to the distancing rules, and it was a white woman in her 40s. Of course.
Karen.
Why wouldn't
Karen. What I was going to say is Staten Island. I don't even know that they're enforcing any laws out there. That is just a shit show of a garbage dump. And if you're from Staten Island and you want to defend your borough, please call somebody else.
I will say this, the NYPD defended themselves by saying that, not all of these are social distancing arrests, which, apparently one of the arrests was from a bank robbery where a note was handed to a teller that read, "I had COVID." So rather than rob a bank with a gun, you rob a bank with coronavirus. So.
Whoa. Dude didn't even show a gun?
No, just handed the teller a note that says, "I have COVID. Give me all your money."
I love it. This is the fucking Wild West in this town. Nobody cares. It's crazy. You've got hipsters walking down with like $7 watered down drinks that in styrofoam cups because suddenly now single-use plastic is okay because of the coronavirus. Nobody wants reusable shit anymore. And at the same time, you've got somebody rolling into a bank. That is a federal crime. That's not even local. Like New York's, like NYPD, that like they turned that shit over to the feds. God damn.
Now, staying in New York City, and I guess this is international. It's New York City to Australia. We talked about this tourist back in January, Visaya Hoffy, who was out late one night, about 4 a.m., fell onto some subway tracks in New York City and was hit by a subway car, ended up having both of her legs amputated, as well as some other injuries. She was recovering for the past few months in a New York City hospital. Finally was able to go back to Brisbane, Australia, and got the COVID-19. Apparently, there was a bunch of people on the plane coughing. When they got back, they'd initially tested negative before leaving the hospital, but then when getting home, got the COVID. Now, thankfully, it would appear that she's got a mild case. She is quarantining. Her mother is self-quarantining in a local hotel. But geez, that is rough stuff. You lose your legs, you finally heal enough to get home, and like what's even more ridiculous is her mother arranged a trip home for the two of them and a nurse that had to accompany them at a cost of $64,000 to get home, and then you get the coronavirus.
Can I make a suggestion?
Of course.
Maybe there's only one person on this planet that would be able to provide that woman comfort.
And who is that?
That's Benny Cordero, the Broadway star who just had his leg amputated.
Actually, I would think she could provide him comfort because she can say, hey, you only lost one leg. I lost both.
Yes, absolutely. Imagine them double dutching. Imagine the two of them playing hopscotch for a couple turns.
Is that like a pay-per-view that you're thinking of arranging?
It would be great. The only thing better than that would then doing a boxing match with the Bagel Boy from Long Island.
The Bagel Boss. Oh yeah.
Hilarious.
So, let's talk celebrity deaths, Brian. We lost a number of
Somebody died
this week. Oh, so many people died. I mean, it's hard to say who was the biggest loss. We started off the weekend by losing Roy Horn of Siegfried and Roy fame, not from complications from that tiger attack years ago, but he died of the coronavirus at 75. Very sad.
How is it any sadder that he died than somebody else died of coronavirus?
I'm just saying. I'm not saying it's any sadder. Just saying it's sad.
Did you ever watch any of their stuff, Siegfried and Roy?
I can't say that I did, but they brought joy to many people, Brian.
And I think those people are the ones that are demanding hair salons open up so they can get a haircut. I'm talking about middle America white trash. What I was going to say is I was never impressed with the animal tricks.
No.
Even as a child, like, and we went to the circus every year. And I just remember, there was something about watching like an elephant getting on its hind leg. I just don't remember I don't remember having a lot of the oohs and ahs.
Didn't do much for you.
No, not at all. Not at all. So what did a lot for me was the comedic stylings of Jerry Stiller.
A legend. I mean, we will typically argue over icon status, legend status, but I think we're both on the same page here that Jerry Stiller is a comedy icon.
I would put him in. It's funny. There was a period of time where we were grading celebrity deaths.
There were,
and Jerry Stiller is an A.
Yes.
And the worst part is that he's not the only A this week.
No, he's not. But I mean, he was, obviously the team of Stilla and Mira, with he and his wife Ann Mira, classic. Two huge roles, playing Frank Costanza on Seinfeld for years, and then following that up by playing Arthur on King of Queens for a number of years. Some great roles in the Zoolander films. Just a variety of TV and movie credits. Just a hilarious guy.
One of the best, at
Well,
least
like
one
you
of the
said,
best of our lifetimes.
like you said, not the only A this week. We also lost another icon in the rock and roll world. Little Richard passes away at the age of 87.
Does it seem like more people are dying? And I know that sounds really stupid with a global pandemic, the plague of our generation. I understand that, but it feels like a lot of celebrities are dying.
I think it's less a case of more celebrities dying. I think what happens at times is you get these periods where bigger names die all at once. And they say it happens in threes. And here's a perfect example. Roy Horn, Little Richard, Jerry Stiller in threes. So that's what happens sometimes.
Are you disrespecting Andre Harrell?
I am not disrespecting Uptown Records founder Andre Harrell, passing away at the age of 59. But I don't know. I mean, can you say that you would have given that death an A?
He is a solid C.
Exactly.
Let's be real. He's a C.
Exactly.
I can't give him much more.
And one coming in right at the end, and again, may not mean a lot to some of you, but means a lot to us. Sumo wrestler Shobushi dying of coronavirus at the young age of 28. This is a man, we followed his career. You and I both felt he was going to be the next Grand Master of sumo. Stings. Really stings, taken out by the COVID-19.
I mean, think of this, I would say that, there are only a handful of prominent third stage sumo wrestlers. And I would say Shobushi had hit that third level.
Mm-hmm. And again, at the very young age in sumo of 28.
Which is just a real shame. I mean, he entered the sport, what was it? I would say what was it, about 2007?
Around there. I mean, he was just a fresh-faced fat kid. He would have been push people out of the ring.
Yeah, he would have been about 15. I mean, it's that one's going to hurt. That one's absolutely going to hurt because suddenly now you are one step closer to being the fattest person on the earth.
It happens. After all these deaths, we now have some revised standings in the Ron and Brian podcast death pool. In first place, we've got Dan D at 25 points. In second place, we have Andrew H at 23. Third place is our previous leader, Dom C at 19 points, shooting up into fourth place after the Jerry Stiller death. Jocelyn P at 18 points. I am coming in at fifth with 13 points. But remember, I'm playing for pride, not prize. And then at sixth place, we've got a tie between Michael A and Blake B at 8 points. Nowhere to be found on the board is Brian. Brian, are you even playing in this death pool?
Not only am I playing, I am playing to win. Some of you, and obviously I'm going to put you in that category.
Me?
You front loaded your picks. You sat there and said, I'm going to pick people that are going to die in the first half of the year. And then my people are going to get stale. No. I'm a second half person. I'm a finisher.
Okay.
When people start, getting tired and winded, that's when I show up to fight. I'm like a Muhammad Ali. I'm a rope-a-dope. I am Rocky in Rocky 2 or Rocky 1, possibly Rambo 4. I don't know. But I'm going to let you take all your hits right off the front. I'm going to let you get winded. And that is when you're going to see me shine.
All right, fair enough. We'll have to wait and see. But again, had you picked Shobushi, you talked about picking Shobushi there, and that would have given you 72 points.
Except I picked Tekashi 6ix9ine.
Oh, well, a lot of people did. I'm still holding out hope for that one.
So am I. Speaking of which, Ryan, let me ask you a quick question. Yeah. Speaking of Tekashi 6ix9ine, what are you watching this week?
Oh, I just got through Into the Night, which was a 6-episode series on Netflix, foreign series dubbed into English. Basically, it's a sci-fi thriller. The premise is that the sun. Something's happened to the sun, and it is killing everybody that is in the sun. So it follows this group of people on a plane as they fly west, trying to avoid the sunlight.
Interesting.
It was decent. It was watchable. I will give it that much. It was watchable.
All right. I just started ESPN's The Last Dance.
I've heard nothing but good things about that.
I'm going to tell you something. I'm not a basketball fan. I don't necessarily subscribe to the cult of Jordan, but I'm going to tell you something. This thing, the way it is shot, edited, it's apparently it was going to be the last season of the Jordan and Scottie
Pippen, Jackson,
Rodman, like it was going to be like their last hurrah.
Right.
And for whatever reason, obviously somebody had the foresight. They allowed a documentary crew to literally follow the team all year long. And so they've got a lot of footage that not only has never been seen before, but the level of access that you are seeing in this documentary, you've never, you wouldn't normally see in the sports world. And let's face it, there's no real live sports going on. And when I say real, I'm referring to UFC 249 this past weekend, coming from Florida, United States. But literally, there's something nice, there's something comforting about watching it, while at the same time, it's an enjoyable watch. That's what has been keeping me busy the last couple nights, in addition to my friend Mary.
Well, speaking of sports, let's jump over to the world of wrestling. This past week, we saw former WWE superstar Alberto Del Rio arrested for sexual assault. Apparently back on May 3rd in San Antonio, Texas, a woman is accusing him of smashing her cell phone, her laptop, attempting to burn her passport in an attack that started around 10 p.m. on the 3rd and lasted till about 2:30 on May 4th. He apparently also choked her, sexually assaulted her. Now this is Del Rio is listed at 6'4", 240 pounds. His accuser is 5'5", 132 pounds. I also read in another article that he threatened to throw her baby as well. Just
is that a wrestling move? Throwing her the baby?
Not that I'm aware of, but I will say back in, I want to say 2017, he was dating another WWE wrestler named Paige, and he was also arrested for domestic abuse in an incident at an airport. So it may be the case that he's got some issues there.
Well, I hope that, if he has committed a crime, I hope he does the time. I hope he stops snorting lines, and I hope he turns his life around. And
speaking of UFC, apparently he also tried to be an MMA fighter, but lost to Tito Ortiz back in December of last year.
Tito Santana? I didn't know that guy was doing MMA.
So speaking of the wrestling, you watched the latest episode of Dark Side of the Ring. This one, I believe, focusing on the Road Warriors. What was your take on it?
It is, once again, I know we've said it before. There is something comforting about being exposed to things that you were that had your attention before this virus shut down the world. I followed wrestling for a few years. And what I'm really enjoying is this Dark Side of the Ring, which is a docuseries that the wrestlers that they are focusing on each episode, for the most part, are ones that I'm familiar with. So this past week was the Road Warriors. Now, to somebody who's never followed wrestling, we don't even know who the fuck they are. Someone who's a fan of wrestling in 2020, you may have heard about them. But like, if you were watching wrestling in the late 80s, mid 80s maybe, it was all about the Road Warriors. Oh, yeah. Animal, Hawk, Ultimate.
Ellerly.
What?
Precious Paul was the manager.
I thought it was Ultimate Warrior.
They tagged with him one time, but he was not part of the Legion of Doom, if you will.
I heard he was not very well liked. But what I'm enjoying is the behind the scenes, and I think I'm like most of America. I do enjoy behind the scenes where I like seeing stories of like, okay, well, for this period of time, all that you were putting out was the message of what you wanted us to hear, but now you're telling us what was really going on back then. For whatever reason, those stories tend to resound.
Yep.
Pretty much. Yep.
And unfortunately, we lost Road Warrior Hawk back in 2003 to a heart attack, which some believed may have resulted from a lot of drug use during his career.
It's implied that he liked to party a lot during his hours that he was awake for most of his adult life.
But Road Warrior's inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2011.
He was alive or dead at the time?
He was dead at the time. Just Animal is left now.
Did they bring out his cremains?
They did not. No, they did not.
They did not bring out like a casket that was supposedly filled with his body, and then out of nowhere, one of the young punks came out and just desecrated it, set it on fire or whatnot.
That's the Undertaker's shtick. I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't even know who. That's what I mean. Like, I don't know who the Undertaker is. I know he's a wrestler. I don't know anything about him. So like 20 years from now, I will have no interest in Dark Side of the Ring. But right now, I'm enjoying it.
It's the season finale of Dark Side of the Ring, and I've been meaning to catch up on the entire seasons because there's been some great stories. But they're finishing with one of the biggest, and that was the death of Owen Hart during a live pay-per-view event. Going back a number of years now. I forget the exact year. But he was supposed to be, he was doing his masked wrestler, his blue blazer gimmick back then. He was supposed to be lowered from the ceiling of the arena, apparently fell out of the harness, fell into the ring, hit his head like right on the ring corner, broke his neck, and he ended up dying. And they completed the pay-per-view. They kept it going.
The show must go on.
The show must go on. So it will be very, I may have to catch that. We may have to talk about that one next week.
Well, I'm not going to give a spoiler alert, but I think it was this season season 1, they had an episode dedicated to Bruiser Brody. Do you remember him?
I remember that. He was.
Do you remember what happened to him?
He was, if I remember, stabbed and killed in a locker room fight after a match.
Yes. Now, he was good friends with Tony Atlas. Remember Tony Atlas?
I do remember Tony Atlas.
Okay. So Tony Atlas is in the locker room. Bruiser Brody goes into a side room with someone, comes out bleeding, and clearly is stabbed. Tony Atlas calls for an ambulance, takes the ambulance with Bruiser Brody to the hospital. The hospital says he's dead. Tony Atlas goes back to the arena and fights the Iron Sheik. Not only did the show go on, but Tony Atlas was like, I had to fight. Like, I didn't know what to do. Like, I was in shock. So I went in the ring.
I had to get my $50 and a hot dog. If I don't wrestle, I don't eat.
Well, it was Puerto Rico. So weren't they, instead of hot dogs, weren't they serving chicharrones?
Possibly. You want to know what's even scarier? Tony Atlas is still wrestling.
No.
And he speaks like a man who has taken way too many shots to the head now.
What is he still wrestling for?
Some of these guys did not manage their money all that much. Did you ever watch the Mickey Rourke movie, The Wrestler? Yes. And you see how some of these old wrestlers, have to do like the autograph signings and the things of that nature. I mean, look at Ric Flair. Ric Flair is on wife 5 or 6 right now, and he still, he doesn't wrestle, but he still is doing the appearances.
Yeah.
He's still taking the occasional bump because he's been broke so many times from his lifestyle.
The difference is that Ric Flair has earning potential.
He still does.
Like he can get a call from the WWE saying, "Hey, we're doing this pay-per-view. We'd like you to come on and be involved this way." Minimum, that's got to be a 5-figure deal.
But if you're in your 70s like he is now, wouldn't you like to just be retired?
I don't know. I think to a certain extent, some people, depending on like how their brains work, I think some people crave the screams of 20,000 people chanting your name. I mean, hell, let's face it. If we can get this podcast rolling eventually and we could get like 30 people to chant our names, I'd be addicted to that shit.
Listen, we'll die doing this podcast. We promise.
I'm okay with it. Hey, I almost died.
That's right. This man fought Corona and won. Respect
Fuck you, Corona.
That's right. Well,
you can take my Roy Horn from Las Vegas, but you're not going to get me.
That's right.
You are
tougher than a tiger wrangler. All right.
We should be playing I feel like we should be playing Eye of the Tiger in the background.
Well, you should have told me that beforehand.
It just dawned upon me. What the fuck? You think I can read my future thoughts?
I don't know.
Episode 105 in the bag.
In the bags. As a reminder, go to ronandbrianpodcast.com. You've got the links to all of our social media. You've got the links to our Patreon. We're going to go record some amazing Patreon content because we're usually pretty lit by the time we get to the Patreon to begin with. We're even more so today. So we've got about a half hour of gold coming. You're going to fill up that glass one more time, aren't you son of a bitch?
You fucking know it.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening. Join us next week. Stay safe out there. And we will be back next week on the Ron and Brian Podcast.